Real evidence isn't hiding in secret vaults or buried deep in labs. Myth 20 says it always stays hidden, but everyday life keeps proving that false. Sometimes the truth is right there in plain sight, like a misread text that becomes clear once you slow down, or a rumor that falls apart when you check a couple of simple facts. We'll pull 3 everyday examples into light, with just enough humor to keep it fun. You'll learn a straightforward way to spot real clues without getting tangled in jargon. And you'll leave with a helpful habit for judging what you hear in news, in stories, and in your own life. No fluff, just practical thinking you can use today. The lure of hidden proof. People often assume that if something is true, the evidence will be right there for everyone to see. Mostly it isn't that simple. The idea that real evidence lives behind a hidden door has a pull, because mysteries feel more compelling than plain, ordinary data. We're drawn to the thought that someone knows a secret shortcut that everyone else is missing. It's the kind of lure that makes a story feel personal and powerful. The lure works in part because our brains like a good mystery. Hidden details promise meaning they can't be explained away with a quick glance. People latch onto vague phrases like hidden proof because they sound decisive, even when the actual facts are murky. In everyday life, this shows up as claims that a product works for reasons you can't quite see, or that a method is too simple to tell you everything. A friend swears by a special routine that guarantees results, but when you ask for a straightforward test, you're met with mystique instead of numbers. The feeling is thrilling, but it can also be a trap that leads us to ignore what's obvious. In practice, real evidence isn't always obvious, but it's often there in accessible forms if you know where to look. It can be buried in a pile of data, buried in plain sight in a chart, or tucked away in a report that isn't well summarized. The trick is to separate the story from a math. Start with clear, checkable questions. What exactly was measured? How many cases were looked at? And who did the counting? Look for multiple sources, not just one claim that sounds dramatic. If a result feels magical, look for replication by others or independent analyses. If the data are solid, you should be able to reproduce the basic result with a simple, honest check, even if you're not a data expert. It helps to ask for the basics first, a simple summary of how the conclusion was reached, not just the sensational headline. Red flags pop up when proof is routinely described as secret or exclusive. Promoters who demand secrecy, who promise extraordinary returns with minimal effort, or who rely on "trust me" language are signaling trouble. Real progress usually survives scrutiny, not hush-hush treatment. Look for transparency, sources, methods, and, when possible, the raw numbers behind a claim. If something sounds too hidden to verify, it's worth pausing. Humor helps here too. If a supposed breakthrough comes with a flashy badge of mystery and no easy way to test it, you're probably not seeing the whole picture. The point isn't to distrust every new claim, but to treat hidden proof as a red flag that invites closer inspection rather than uncritical excitement. The core message is practical and simple. Evidence tends to be practical and shareable, not secret and exclusive. Real insight usually travels through clear explanations, accessible examples, and a few boring but reliable checks. The lure of hidden proof can be seductive, but thorough, everyday checks tend to reveal what's real. Treat mystery as a prompt to ask better questions, not as a doorway to instant certainty. Real evidence in plain sight. Real evidence isn't always buried under layers of mystery. Sometimes it's staring you in the face. In everyday life, clues hide in ordinary things like a photo's timestamp, a receipt left on the counter, or a note in someone's handwriting. It's the kind of thing that makes you laugh later when you realize you were looking right at it all along. The point is simple. Evidence can be obvious when you stop looking for it in the wrong places. Real evidence in plain sight also lives in digital traces that many people skip over. A photo carries information about when and where it was taken, even if the picture seems straightforward. A video shows events as a sequence, and the moments between frames can matter just as much as the frame you focus on. A message thread preserves choices and reactions, not just words. A calendar entry or a forgotten email can anchor what happened and when. The pitfall is thinking evidence has to be dramatic to count. Our brains enjoy mystery and gloss over the ordinary data around us. We filter out the obvious because it looks too easy or because we assume it is already understood. To see real evidence in plain sight, start with what is there before you add theories. Look for patterns that repeat and stay consistent across sources. Check the obvious data first, timestamps, receipts, and logs, before chasing something rumored to be hidden. Use simple checks to test plain sight clues. Compare what different sources say, and note where they match or conflict. Don't draw conclusions from a single clue. Seek corroboration. When you notice plain sight evidence, write down how it fits into the larger story, not just what it seems to imply on its own. And yes, humor helps. Sometimes the plainest clue is the one that makes you smile because it's so ordinary. Signals that fool the eye. Perception isn't a perfect recorder. What you see is colored by lighting, angle, and quick mental shortcuts. Signals that fool the eye show up when a hint of truth is wrapped in a trick. The idea that real proof would shout loud and clear is often false. More often, the real signal hides behind a clever mask. This matters because misread signals can derail everyday decisions. Visual tricks are everywhere. A photo shot from a low angle makes someone look taller and more powerful. A bright edge around an object can make it seem important. A crowded street can feel chaotic even when nothing dangerous is happening. Even familiar things like a menu sign or a billboard use warm colors and big type to grab attention. That doesn't mean the claim behind it is accurate. For instance, a product that glows in photos might seem miraculous, but the glow is a design choice, not proof. The eye notices the cue, and the brain stops there. Cognitive signals work on different ground. We tend to see patterns where none exist, especially with small samples. A couple of coincidences can feel like a hidden rule. The phrase "it happened right after" is tempting but not proof. People often confuse correlation with causation, like thinking a new habit caused a change simply because both appeared in the same stretch of time. A single glowing review, no matter how enthusiastic, doesn't equal solid evidence. The mind loves a tidy story, even when the data are messy. To guard against signals that fool the eye, collect more than one clue. Check the source and ask who benefits from a particular view. Seek independent data or an opposite angle. Look for how big the sample is and whether the trend holds over time. Try simple tests or ask a friend to confirm what you think you see. In everyday life, if something looks incredible, pause and probe. Would the claim still hold if the lighting were different or if another person weighed in? And remember, the strongest case usually comes from several signals that point the same way, not from a single striking cue. When big claims don't require hiddenness. Real evidence doesn't have to stay behind a locked door. In many fields, big claims are built on openly shared data, transparent methods, and results that anyone can scrutinize. A medical trial may publish its protocol, the exact number of participants, the statistical analyses used, and the data in public repositories. When results are shown this way, others can try to reproduce them or test whether the conclusions hold in different settings, without hunting for a hidden file cabinet. People often demand secret evidence, but not always necessary. In everyday life, you can verify big claims by simple tests and public demonstrations. A gadget maker might publish independent lab tests showing battery life and durability. A blender company might release test results comparing noise levels and speed with rivals. If you can see the test setup, the variables, and the results, you don't need to accept the claim on trust. No spy games needed, just a clear bench, a stopwatch, and a little healthy skepticism. Open data isn't always available, but when it is, it builds credibility. You can check the study design, see how participants were selected, and see if the same results show up in other labs or on different datasets. This is how science without secret guards works. It also reduces the chance of cherry-picking or p-hacking because the full data and code are out there for others to examine. Sometimes big claims are about everyday improvements that everyone can verify with a quick test. A gym or app company might claim their workout program reduces time to achieve a goal. If they publish user results or aggregate data from many users, you can see the trend without digging through private records. In technology, open benchmarks let you compare products on a level playing field. Consumers benefit by seeing the actual tests behind the claims. However, transparency isn't a magic wand. Some honest claims exist with partial openness, and some important data can't be shared due to privacy or safety. Still, the core idea stands. Big claims don't require hiddenness when the evidence is testable, reproducible, and open to scrutiny. If a claim sounds grand, but the evidence is locked away, be skeptical, ask for the method, and look for independent checks. Tools that bring proof out of the shadows. Real evidence doesn't always hide in shadows. It leaves traces you can follow with the right tools. Modern proof often sits in plain sight as data trails, recordings, or simple physical clues. People can uncover what happened by looking at receipts, photos, timestamps, and the way things connect. When you spot a mismatch, tools can help you track it down instead of guessing. Digital tools turn everyday devices into proof finders. A photo carries more than color. It can carry numbers in its hidden layers, like when the camera records where and when it was taken. Reverse image search helps you see where a picture really came from. Look for metadata the file leaves behind, date, device, and location hints, if allowed and appropriate. That data is a starting point, not an answer, so ask more questions. It's a little like detective work you can do in your pajamas. Public records and open data portals are neighbors you can knock on for straight answers. Freedom of information requests can pull documents out of folders people forget to close. Crowdfunding verification and independent journalism add extra eyes and patience to the process. Fact checkers often cross-check claims with multiple sources, looking for consistency rather than loudness. Even simple community tools, like shared spreadsheets or community forums, can reveal patterns when enough people weigh in. Start with a clear claim and gather a few initial sources. Then test those sources with multiple tools rather than trusting the first shiny link. Keep track of what you find and note any conflicts. Respect privacy and avoid sharing accusations without solid proof. If something doesn't add up, pause, ask questions again, and look for a second or third opinion. Tools should guide your thinking, not replace careful judgment. A fresh view. Evidence is often visible. Clues don't need to hide in the shadows to count as real evidence. Most truth sits in plain sight if you know how to look. Evidence is often visible. A muddy footprint on a doorstep tells a story without a word spoken. A spilled drink leaves a stain that hints at what happened. This kind of evidence is simple, tangible, and easy to verify with a quick glance. It doesn't require a secret file or a locked vault. People miss it because they expect drama, not dirt. Think about everyday signs. Weather shows itself in streaked windows and puddles that dry into memory. A receipt on the counter is a tiny, honest record of what was bought. A calendar note or a sticky reminder marks a plan in plain letters. A crack in the cup or a chipped mug tells you something bumped along the way. Visible evidence can be boring, but it is reliable when data is scarce or when you want to slow down and see what happened. You don't need a lab to notice these details, just a moment of attention. Technology makes visible clues even easier to read. Phone cameras catch events as they happen, and a photo can hold a date and place without a detective hat. Screenshots, timestamps, and public posts act like public notes left on the street for anyone to see. Cameras, sensors, and dashboards turn messy reality into simple pictures you can scan in seconds. But signs can be misleading too, so it's wise to check several visible clues rather than rely on one photo. To use visible evidence well, start with curiosity. Look for patterns that fit together and check against a second clue before jumping to a conclusion. If you think a mess means someone did something, try a quick check. Compare the scene with other related hints to see if they tell the same story. Gather at least a couple of independent clues, ask simple questions, and verify with corroborating sources. Even a coffee ring on a napkin can be a tiny witness. Seeing is helpful, but reading visible evidence calmly keeps confusion down and decisions clearer. Myth 20 says real evidence is always hidden, but that's not how truth works in real life. Real evidence isn't a secret dossier kept behind a locked door. It's often right in front of us, just waiting to be checked. Here are the core takeaways you can carry forward. Evidence can show up in everyday observations, like noticing how plants respond when you water them, and in simple tests you can do at home. You don't need a fancy lab to start testing ideas. When you see a claim, look for the source and think about whether others could reproduce the result. If there are numbers, ask what they measure, who collected them, and whether the sample is big enough. Be wary of data that's shiny but lacks context or is cherry-picked to fit story. If you're watching this, you're the curious type, the kind who wants to know what's true rather than what sounds dramatic. That curiosity is your compass, not a torch snuffed out by mystery. If you like this wrap-up, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who loves a good myth bust. Drop a claim you want tested in the comments. Maybe we'll try a simple home check together. Next time, we'll tackle another popular myth and show you a quick, real-world test you can try in your kitchen or living room. No secret handshakes, no lab coats required. Just practical thinking and a little humor. See you in the next video.